Hi, welcome to the channel. Let's make some topwater bucktails. And I'm going to show you the jig I created for bending lure eyes and doing barrel wraps. Stay tuned. For the project of making this bucktail, and again this is the topwater version with a buzzbait blade, these are some of the parts and tools we're going to need. I always forget something, so you can pick that out later in the video when, hey, what is that? I'm going to need some hooks. These I think are 5/0. I like using single hooks on these things because it doesn't mess the fish up as bad if you're doing catch and release. So we're going to need some beads, a lure body, which is just a worm weight, which I paint with scientifically formulated paint for making lures, nail polish. I use clear nail polish to glue the threads. You can use all kinds of epoxies or whatever. I make these things just simple and cheap. A buzzbait blade, some scissors. I've got some stainless steel wire. I use these ones for the front of the lure. They're cheater wire. They come, you can buy them in 8-inch pieces that already have one eye on them. Save yourself a little bit of work. And they're very consistent eyes when you buy them this way, so they look good. And then I just have some stainless links. I think these are 8-inch. I cut them in half to make the tail end of the lure. So this is kind of the skeleton that we're going to build. So this is 0.04 or 0.041 wire stainless. You can get these from all kinds of lure making websites. I got these ones off of luremaking.com. They're not a sponsor. I'll leave a link below. I'm going to need some cutters, some vice grips. When we put the wire together, it's going to form a skeleton like this. We're going to tie bucktail on this piece first. Then we're going to attach it to this. We're going to close off the eye, and then we'll tie bucktail here so it's in 2 pieces, like so. We're going to need a tying vise. This one is ancient. It's a D.H. Thompson. I have no idea. This was my dad's, and it was old when he had it. So, but you can get all kinds of these things. You can even use vice grips if you're just starting out. And I've also crafted a jig here for bending our wire. I'll show you how this works. This is made out of a 1/2-inch shaft collar, which comes with a 1/4-20 set screw, so you can easily put in a 1/4-20 bolt for a handle. I've bent a piece of wire here and put a little notch in it to catch the wire. It's hard to see, but there's a groove in this, and so one part here pushes the tag of the wire around, and when it catches in here it straightens it out. I'll show you when we're using it. And then this part of the jig I made is another 1/2-inch shaft collar with a 1/4-20 bolt that I've cut a notch this way, and I've cut a groove, you can see that way, and a notch that way, and that's for doing the barrel wraps. And all of that sits on a 1/2-inch bolt that I've put a number 8 deck screw in, just the shank of a number 8 deck screw and the shank of a number 10 deck screw to bend the wires. I'll show you how that works. In previous videos I was bending my wire to make your wire eyes around a rusty nail and a trusty piece of well-used 2x4, which is a super simple way of doing it. And if you're just starting making lures like this, a nail and a board is a very, very easy way to do this. Pair of pliers, pair of vice grips, bend it around the nail. It's in my previous videos. Works really well, but it is tedious, and it's about a 6 to a 6.5 on the awkward AF scale. So I have done this for years. I have used a nail because I build, I might build 6 or 12 lures at a time and then not do it again for a while. So, you can just do this. This is very simple. If you're just getting started, or if you're only going to build a few, you don't need to have tools and jigs and all that stuff. You can do it just with this. As far as using nail polish for the lure bodies, I've had lots of comments about that nail polish, it just chips and falls off. And yes, it does. I use this because you can buy it at the dollar store. It's super cheap. It looks great. It dries really quick, which is handy when you're making lures. Whatever you're painting them with, you can use any kind of hobby paint, jig paint, whatever you want. I use nail polish. Yes, it chips. It'll chip like crazy. The fish, in my opinion, don't care that it's chipped. They don't. Anglers do. If you're trying to catch anglers, then you really have to paint these things nice. So I'm going to clean this up. We'll get the wires bent up. I'll show you this jig, and then we'll get the vise and we'll tie some bucktail on it. The next part of this is to make the skeleton of the lure, which is going to look something like this. So we're going to make a tail section like this, and we're going to use this new jig. So I have these pieces of wire This is 0.040 inch. And I'm just going to cut this piece in half. And this goes in this jig this way, like so. And it bends it around. And once it catches in the corner here, it gives it that little offset, like so. Then we can use this end of the jig, and I hope it's lined up in the camera. So I'm going to take this in a pair of vice grips, like so. Goes in here into the notch, and you just turn it. And that makes your barrel wrap. Has a little tag on there I'll cut off after. Okay, so we'll do the other side. I like to leave myself about an inch. Like so. Into the vice grips. And we just simply do the barrel wrap. Like so. And again, if there's a little tag, we can trim that after. That's what that jig does. Like so. Then to make the front part, I'm going to use a metal bead. I'm going to use a metal bead like so, and then a blade, another metal bead, a couple plastic ones, just spacers, and adds a little bit of color. You can add whatever color or however many beads you want to this. This is where you make it yours. I'm just going to put this back in the jig here. Leave myself as much as I can here. Bring it around. Get that ready. We'll leave it like that for now. Then we'll tie the bucktail. We'll tie the bucktail on this section, and then we'll put this together, we'll do the barrel wrap, and then we'll tie bucktail on here. Hopefully this is I want to do a little bit better close-up of this jig. Wire goes in, sits in the notch there, bend it around, and then once this wire catches the corner of this, it puts that little straightening bend in it, like so. This part of the jig, I have a groove cut in it there, and a notch like so. So from there, I take my vice grips, I lock it in, so it goes in like so, and you catch that tag end in the groove, and then you do the barrel wrap. Sorry for my shaky hands. So it does leave a little tag sometimes, and that's easy enough to trim off. Hi, thanks for watching this far. I'm going to put some links in the description below for the YouTube videos that I found that inspired me to make this jig, so you can check those out. Back to the video. Alright, so for this next part, this is where we're going to tie the bucktail on, and I've mounted the tail section into the vise. So I have miles and miles and miles of this black thread, which is old. I don't even know where it's come from. So I'm not going to use a bobbin. I'm just using these lengths. They're about 3 feet long. It would be easier to use a fly tying bobbin, but being the stubborn, cheap person I am, I'm not going to let this thread go to waste. So I'm just going to attach it to my wire. This is a similar process that I've shown in my other videos. Simply attach your thread to your wire, add a little bit of glue. I know there's all kinds of epoxies I could be using. And then I'm just going to use some Bucktail here to tie this together. I'll move these out of the way so we can see. And then you simply take some Bucktail. Get started with a smaller piece first, and then you can add more later. Tie it on, get a couple knots on it, and then you're going to have to take this out of the vise and turn it as necessary to be able to tie your Bucktail to it. Like so. And again, I'm just using clear nail polish because it's cheap, it dries quick, it does a pretty good job. I'm not making these things to be armored for life. I can make more when they get worn out. I'll just make more. It's not a big deal to me. Just change it around in the vise here to add a little more hair to this side. But again, these things get tore up pretty quick with pike teeth. So, you know, you can armor them as good as you want, but the pike teeth are going to cut the hair off of them and everything else. So, okay, so we're just going to wind this on here, tighten it down. This is really not too complicated. Put in some knots. If you use lots of knots, if you get a break in your thread, at least, you know, you would hope it would stop unraveling at a knot. Like so. Okay, you don't need, when you're making these things, you don't need a whole pile of hair on them. You can make them as full as you like. It's up to you. And we'll just finish this off here. I like to finish them off really nice just to armor the ends. And then we'll put a layer of blue on. I use a lot of blue and orange, I don't know, it's a personal preference. I make lots of other colors too. Red and white is always good. Black and yellow. So I'm trying to record a video, so somebody upstairs has decided it's time to vacuum. Alright, at the moment we seem to have a break in the vacuuming. So kids are all busy playing upstairs. So I'm going to try and get one more color on here, so if there's a little bit of background noise from the family, we're going to have to deal with that. So same process here. Get your thread on the wire, put a little bit of glue on it, take your next color or the same color or whatever it is you're going to do. Start off with a smaller amount. Just start adding a little bulk to the lure. So this is a second color. This is a color over color. You can tie it in stripes. You can do whatever you like. I kind of like this pattern. To me it's kind of a perch pattern. A little bit of glue. And it's up to you just how full you want to make these. I'm not a videographer, so often I forget a number of steps. I enjoy the process of making videos, but I definitely don't know everything about lighting and camera angles and all the rest of that stuff. So, you know, if you're watching my videos, I appreciate the fact that you put up with it to see what I'm up to. And again, I'm just going to finish this nicely, cover all of this with a nice taper on here. Once you've done a few, this goes pretty quick. You can make a few of these in an evening. Tie on one more piece of thread and just build this up. Adds a little bit of armor. Put a nice taper on it, like so. Cut off your end. Alright, so that's more or less what you end up with. You can make this as full as you like, but that's what we're going for. When you compare it to the lure, that's what we're going for. Alright, so for the next bit of this, we bent this earlier. This has had a chance to dry, so I'll just feed that on there, and then we're going to do a barrel wrap on here and tie the bucktail on here. This gets to be a little more tricky because we got some stuff in our way, but this jig should work for this. We'll get in here like we did before, and we'll just start our barrel wrap. Like so. This one did leave a tag, we'll clean that up. That's really all you need. You don't need too much more of a wrap than that. This is pretty strong stainless wire. And then we're going to put this, I'll move my jig vise out of the way, I'll put my tying vise back in, and we'll finish this lure off. Okay, so this works pretty much the same as what we did here, so I'm going to do this a little bit quicker. You're going to put on your thread, tie on the hair. So put on some thread, get that started. So again, similar process. Like so. I'm just going to put a little bend in my wire to try and face it down a little bit so my accessories stay down here while I'm working. So you just start with a little bit and then you build it up. Sometimes you end up catching the blade a little bit while you're tying, and it can get annoying, but you just work around it. Once you get the hang of it, they go pretty quick. You can make a few of these in an evening. It doesn't take long before you have a pretty good collection of lures put together. Buying the supplies to build just a few, you're not going to save money over buying your favorite lure at the store. You're not. To me, the point of this is to make something yourself and to add to your skills for fishing. To me, there's something satisfying about catching trophy fish on a lure that I've made. So once you start making a bunch of these, it's like any hobby. You have to buy this, you have to buy that. Next thing you know, it's an expensive hobby. But I enjoy the process of making these lures, and I really enjoy catching fish on something I've made. This is a hobby you take up to sort of satisfy the curiosity of making something yourself. So we'll add another piece of thread, we'll put on the blue, and then this lure is complete. Usually what I'll do is I'll put the hooks on later. When I tie up a bunch of these, I'll hang them up, and they're just easier to store and move around and what have you if you don't put hooks on them right away. And then when I'm ready to use them, I'll put some hooks on. Keeps them from tangling together and all those good things. Put in just a little bit more there. Doesn't need much. Very well. Put a nice taper on this, and then we'll I'll get one more piece of thread here. We'll put a nice taper on that, and we should be done. There you go. And given that these are small batch artisan made, no two are alike, So that's the lure we're going for. And I think it turns out pretty good doing it that way. You know? And the more you do them, the better they get. And you'll find that when you start doing them by the batch, you know, you'll see them improve in the batch. So like I said, I'll put the hooks on this later. That's basically the lure we're going for. No two are exactly alike, and that's great. But I think it's a pretty good looking lure. They work very well. Experiment around with it. See what you can come up with. If you made it this far listening to my rambling, congratulations, thanks for watching. Get out there and make some lures.